Hello there. Hello, Evelyn and Sissy, and I'm sure there are others on now. It's weird. Sometimes it always tells me how many people are on, but then sometimes it introduces people and sometimes not, so I don't quite know. But I am so grateful for your company and welcome. If you're new, welcome. This is a lovely group of people who get together every day at 5 Pacific, and together we read old books. Well, I do the reading, and you guys do the listening and chatting amongst yourselves about the book and other things. Everything is fair game as I sit here and read. It's a it's a secret of mine that this is one of the best ways for me to read during each day. I like reading, but I don't get to do it quite enough at the moment. And so this is a way that I am assured of doing some reading every day. And I also do a lot of audiobooks, so I do read many audiobooks, but reading the books I want to read isn't always that easy. And here we read old books, classic books together. So somebody sent a photograph of all the books that we had read over the last year, and it was a nice pile of books, and it was very satisfying to realize that we did that together. And so onward into the next year we go, and we are reading The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. It's I hope you're enjoying it. It's definitely an acquired taste, but I must say I enjoy it. Welcome to a fireside reading of The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, Chapter 10, Part 2. At the end of the street, I saw the cathedral and walked up toward it. The first time I ever saw it, I thought the facade was ugly, but I liked it now. I went inside. It was dim and dark, and the pillars went high up, and there were people praying, and it smelled of incense, and there were some wonderful big windows. I knelt and started to pray, and prayed for everybody I thought of. Brett and Mike and Bill and Robert Cohn and myself, and all the bullfighters separately for the ones I liked, and lumping all the rest. Then I prayed for myself again, and while I was praying for myself, I found I was getting sleepy, so I prayed that the bullfights would be good, and that it would be a fine fiesta, and that we would get some fishing. I wondered if there was anything else I might pray for, and I thought I would like to have some money, so I prayed that I would make a lot of money, and then I started to think how I would make it, and thinking of making money reminded me of the Count. And I started to wonder about where he was, and regretting I hadn't seen him since that night in Montmartre, and about something funny Brett told me about him, and as all the time I was kneeling with my forehead on the wood in front of me and was thinking of myself as praying, I was a little ashamed and regretted that I was such a rotten Catholic, but realized there was nothing I could do about it, at least for a while, and maybe never, but that anyway, it was a grand religion, and I only wished I felt religious, and maybe I would the next time. And then I was out in the hot sun on the steps of the cathedral, and the forefingers and the thumb of my right hand were still damp, and I felt them dry in the sun. The sunlight was hot and hard, and I crossed over beside some buildings and walked back along side streets to the hotel. At dinner that night, we found that Robert Cohen had taken a bath, had had a shave and a haircut and a shampoo, and something put on his hair afterward to make it stay down. He was nervous, and I didn't try to help him any. The train was due in at 9 o'clock from San Sebastian, and if Brett and Mike were coming, they would be on it. At 20 minutes to 9, we were not half through dinner. Robert Cohn got up from the table and said he would go to the station. I said I would go with him, just to devil him. Bill said he would be damned if he would leave his dinner. I said we would be right back. We walked to the station. I was enjoying Cohn's nervousness. I hoped Brett would be on the train. At the station, the train was late, and we sat on a baggage truck and waited outside in the dark. I have never seen a man in civil life as nervous as Robert Cohn, nor as eager. I was enjoying it. It was lousy to enjoy it, but I felt lousy. Cohn had a wonderful quality of bringing out the worst in everybody. After a while, we heard the train whistle way off below on the other side of the plateau, and then we saw the headlight coming up the hill. We went inside the station and stood with a crowd of people just back of the gates, and the train came in and stopped, and everybody started coming out through the gates. They were not in the crowd. We waited till everybody had gone through and out of the station and gotten into buses or taken cabs or were walking with their friends or relatives through the dark into the town. I knew they wouldn't come, Robert said. We were going back to the hotel. I thought they might, I said. Bill was eating fruit when we came in and finishing a bottle of wine. Didn't come, eh? No. Do you mind if I give you that 100 pesetas in the morning, Cohn? Bill asked. I haven't changed any money here yet. Oh, forget about it, Robert Cohn said. Let's bet on something else. Can you bet on bullfights? You could, Bill said, but you don't need to. It would be like betting on the war, I said. You don't need an economic interest. I'm very curious to see them, Robert said. Montoya came up to our table. He had a telegram in his hand. It's for you. He handed it to me. It read, Stopped night, San Sebastian. It's from them, I said. I put it in my pocket. Ordinarily, I should have handed it over. They've stopped over in San Sebastian, I said. Send their regards to you. Why I felt that impulse to devil him, I do not know. Of course, I do know. I was blind, unforgivingly jealous of what had happened to him. The fact that I took it as a matter of course did not alter that any. I certainly did hate him. I do not think I ever really hated him until he had that little spell of superiority at lunch. That and when he went through all that barbering. So I put the telegram in my pocket. The telegram came to me anyway. Well, I said, we ought to pull out on the noon bus for Bourguet. They can follow us if they get in tomorrow night. There were only 2 trains up from San Sebastian, an early morning train and the one we had just met. That sounds like a good idea, Cohn said. The sooner we get on the stream, the better. It's all one to me when we start, Bill said. The sooner the better. We sat in the Iruña for a while and had coffee, and then took a little walk out to the bull ring and across the field and under the trees at the edge of the cliff, and looked down at the river in the dark. And I turned in early. Bill and Cohn stayed out in the cafe quite late, I believe, because I was asleep when they came in. In the morning, I bought 3 tickets for the bus to Bourguet. It was scheduled to leave at 2 o'clock. There was nothing earlier, I was sitting over at the Arunia reading the papers when I saw Robert Cohn coming across the square. He came up to the table and sat down in one of the wicker chairs. "This is a comfortable cafe," he said. "Did you have a good night, Jake?" I slept like a log. I didn't sleep very well. Bill and I were out late, too. Where were you? Here, and after it shut, we went over to that other cafe. The old man there speaks German and English. The Cafe Suizo? That's it. He seems like a nice old fellow. I think it's a better cafe than this one. It's not so good in the daytime, I said. Too hot. By the way, I got the bus tickets. I'm not going up today. You and Bill go on ahead. I've got your ticket. Give it to me. I'll get the money back. It's 5 pesetas. Robert Cohen took out a silver 5 peseta piece and gave it to me. I ought to stay, he said. You see, I'm afraid there's some sort of misunderstanding. Why? I said. They may not come here for 3 or 4 days now if they start on parties on San Sebastian. That's just it, said Robert. I'm afraid they expected to meet me at San Sebastian, and that's why they stopped over. What makes you think that? Well, I wrote suggesting it to Brett. Why in hell didn't you stay there and meet them then? I started to say, but I stopped. I thought the idea would come to him by itself, but I did not believe it ever did. But I do not believe it ever did. He was being confidential now, and it was giving him pleasure to be able to talk with the understanding that I knew there was something between him and Brett. Well, Bill and I will go up right after lunch, I said. I wish I could go. We've been looking forward to this fishing all winter. He was being sentimental about it, but I ought to stay. I really ought. As soon as they come, I'll bring them right up. Let's find Bill. I want to go over to the barber shop. See you at lunch. I found Bill up in his room. He was shaving. Oh, yes, he told me all about it last night, Bill said. He's a great little confider. He said he had a date with Brett at San Sebastian. The lying bastard. Oh, no, said Bill. Don't get sore. Don't get sore at this stage of the trip. How did you ever happen to know this fellow anyway? Don't rub it in. Bill looked around, half-shaved, and then went on talking into the mirror while he lathered his face. Didn't you send him with a letter to me in New York last winter? Thank God I'm a traveling man. Haven't you got some more Jewish friends you could bring along? He rubbed his chin with his thumb, looked at it, and then started scraping again. You've got some fine ones yourself. Oh, yes, I've got some darbs, but not alongside of this Robert Cohen. The funny thing is, he's nice, too. I like him, but he's just so awful. He can be damn nice. I know it. That's the terrible part. I laughed. Yes, go on and laugh, said Bill. You weren't out with him last night until 2 o'clock. Was he very bad? Awful. What's all this about him and Brett, anyway? Did she ever have anything to do with him? He raised his chin and pulled it from side to side. Sure, she went down to San Sebastian with him. What a damn fool thing to do. Why did she do that? She wanted to get out of town, and she can't go anywhere alone. She said she thought it would be good for him. What bloody fool things people do. Why didn't she go off with some of her own people, or you? He slurred that over. Or me? Why not me? He looked at his face carefully in the glass, put a big dab of lather on each cheekbone. It's an honest face. It's a face any woman would be safe with. She'd never seen it. She should have. All women should see it. It's a face that ought to be thrown on every screen in the country. Every woman ought to be given a copy of this face as she leaves the altar. Mothers should tell their daughters about this face. My son, he pointed the razor at me, go west with this face and grow up with the country. He ducked down to the bowl, rinsed his face with cold water, put on some alcohol, and then looked at himself carefully in the glass, pulling down his long upper lip. My God, he said, isn't it an awful face? He looked in the glass. And as for this Robert Cohen, Bill said, he makes me sick, and he can go to hell, and I'm damn glad he's staying here so we won't have him fishing with us. You're damn right. We're going trout fishing. We're going trout fishing in the Irati River, and we're going to get tight now at lunch on the wine of the country, and then take a swell bus ride. Come on, let's go over to the Urunia and start, I said. Thanks all for joining me. I'm so glad you're here. And more tomorrow, same time and place, at Fireside Reading on Instagram at 5 Pacific, most every day. You can always check, and almost every day we do it, except when I can't, but I'll always try to give you notice of that. Okay, until tomorrow, I hope everyone stays very, very well. Bye-bye.